Are you serious?
Come on,
he is not credible.
No, no, no. Are you serious that this is
Yes, he did write it.
That of all the things that we're talking about here,
pregnant people in his resignation.
Oh, come on.
And I'm sorry, if that is like, if that is like the way you're, if that is like the way you're presenting information, I have questions about your
science that's been accepted.
Can men get pregnant or not?
Scott,
if you're in the CDC and you believe that, I'm saying you're not a terribly credible person.
The CDC that is responsible for the health and welfare.
I don't understand why that would even be a comparison that you would make, honestly.
Because it's a great way to not answer the question.
Well,
exactly.
no one knows.
Excellent way.
Guys, we're way over our time here.
What question?
You have a person who, during his confirmation hearings, said that black people had a different immune system, that we should follow a different immunization schedule. You have a person who has spent his...
We have to get derailed by this political BS when you could just say, yeah, that's garbage and we shouldn't politicize science.
Because some scientists are allowed to politicize things and some aren't.
No.
And it depends on your politics. I didn't say that.
Have degrees.
I literally didn't say
in
that.
the subject,
Why did you say
but watch.
I didn't say.
But watch.
Why are you
watch
saying
this
I said
clip.
that? I didn't say that.
Hello, everybody. Guys, let's get right into this segment. Scott Jennings is just a joke at this point. He is not to be taken serious in any capacity. This was so insane to hear. Watch how he just derailed the entire conversation. Abby was forced to humiliate that dumbass. Check this out and we'll talk about it.
CDC staff gathered today to honor top officials who resigned from their positions after the abrupt ouster of the agency's director, Dr. Susan Monarez. Attorneys for the now former director says that she refused to rubber stamp vaccine recommendations that flew in the face of science and listened to RFK Jr.'s handpicked panel of advisors. But if it wasn't immediately apparent why she was fired, well, Caroline Levitt, the press secretary, made that abundantly clear.
Look, what I will say about this individual is that her lawyer's statement made it abundantly clear themselves that she was not aligned with the president's mission to make America healthy again. And the secretary asked her to resign. She said she would, and then she said she wouldn't, so the president fired her, which he has every right to do.
Kennedy Deputy Jim O'Neill is expected to step in as acting director of the CDC. Joining us now at the table in our fifth seat is Dr. Chris Purnell. She is a public health and preventative medicine physician and director of the NAACP Center for Health Equity. Dr. Purnell, we were talking earlier in the show about, there were a lot of alarms about what would happen if, Trump did this, what would happen if Trump did that. One of the big things was this appointment of RFK Jr. How do you feel today? I mean, is this your worst case scenario?
Exactly. We in the NAACP, and personally myself as a public health and preventive medicine physician, I fought tooth and nail for Secretary Kennedy to not be named secretary. We knew the potential abuses of having someone who was a 2 decades long vaccine skeptic, someone who was reckless about the use of science, in charge of one of the largest government agencies with oversight over the CDC, and everything that we feared unfortunately has been enacted. Look, there's a bloodbath at the CDC. We in public health feel like we are undermined consistently, and now we don't even have a credible agency or reputable infrastructure by which to safeguard Americans, to protect the most vulnerable and the most marginalized. And data itself is not Republican or Democrat. Science should not be politicized, and we are living in a time when the political determinants of health are proving when the wrong people are in charge, it's deadly.
As he was saying, you were saying something in the last segment about this very thing. I mean, when everything in the government is infected by politics, where can people turn to feel like, you know what, no matter who's in office, I can trust this. No matter who's in office, this is reliable. I mean, are we moving away from that as a country?
Yeah, and that's why I said this is the quickest way to ruin an advanced civilization, by politicizing and corrupting expertise. I have a personal invested stake in what happens at HHS. I'm the mother of an autistic son, and the way RFK Jr. has talked about autism is ruining people's lives.
Exactly.
It is endangering people because of the way he talks about autism, the way he's promising a cure that doesn't exist, the way he's blaming vaccines is going to get people killed. And it's also really gross and dirty and quackery. But I'm just mad that those health officials resigned. I get why they did. But all those vacancies are going to be filled by more quacks and TV doctors who want to perform for Trump.
It's an important point, because you know, the decision, they talked about the decision to do it, and it is always a challenge when people decide to do that, because, yeah, you leave a vacancy that someone else is going to fill. I want to play for what one of those officials said tonight, speaking to Kate.
Really quick, RFK Jr. has actual worms in his brain. Worms are eating that man's brain. I mean, how is it even legal for him to be health secretary? He shouldn't even be allowed to hold a government job. He shares his brains with worms. I mean, come on, who does that? Share your brain with worms? Come on. In all seriousness, I'm sorry, but you have to be an absolute fool to listen to RFK Jr. for health or anything coming from his team at this point. I mean, nothing about him screams healthy. He's all effed up. Literally nothing. His voice sounds like those Don't Smoke commercials back in the 90s. He has brain worms. I mean, listen to him if you want for advice, but you got to be out your damn mind. These people are not all there. RFK Jr. is a quack. He's not there. Look up some of the odd things that man has done. He's done so many. Leaving, what was it, a bear carcass in Central Park? This guy's a very weird dude with a broken mind that is being shared with worms. Like, if these people weren't government officials, they'd belong in a padded room.
Collins in the last hour about what he saw was happening at the agency that he just left, the CDC.
The people that have been installed by Secretary Kennedy are full of ideology and bias that will actually contaminate the science. So I think that we have evidence that this is coming. And I think that the other part that we're seeing is that decisions are being made and data is being retrofitted to be able to address the decision. I think that is really a clear sign that the direction that the country's public health is going is not one that is evidence-based or science-based, which is why our resignations are really together are trying to raise a red flag for everyone.
RFK Jr. came in knowing what he wanted the science to say.
Exactly.
And it sounds like from that official, what is happening is that he is making pronouncements and then finding things to back it up. I mean, this is stuff that affects real people's lives, vaccines, you know.
We're in national immunization awareness month.
Immunization.
I hear the criticism from this person. I just have to say, he did use the term pregnant people in his resignation.
Oh, come on.
And I'm sorry, if that is like the way you're presenting information, I have questions about your credibility.
Scott, it's so amazing.
It's not a ruse. He really wrote it down.
It's a ruse because people are dying.
This guy's not credible to me. That's all I'm telling you.
Scott, are you serious?
Come on.
No, he is not credible.
No. Are you serious that this is
yes, he did write it.
That of all the things that we're talking about here, immunizations, vaccines, autism, the research about on communicable diseases, on cancer, and you are the most concerned about someone's use of the word people.
Yeah, because
that's the most important thing.
Because you were just complaining about the politicization of science,
that's
and
not
I can't think of politicization of science more than that, or of what some of these people said to the American people during COVID. So the credibility of some of these folks who are complaining. Look.
Okay, so
well, I'm complaining, and I'm a public health and preventive medicine physician. We in the NAACP are complaining, right? And we are an iconic civil rights and human rights organization. There is reason to complain, Scott. You have a person who, during his confirmation hearings, said that black people had a different immune system, that we should follow a different immunization schedule. You have a person who has spent his life undermining science, credible science. The people who walked out of the CDC, the people who resigned, these are not flippant folks. These are not people who did this on the slight of a turn. These are people who dedicated their livelihoods, who dedicated their hearts and their expertise to safeguarding the health of all Americans. And now we are compromised, not just from a health and well-being standpoint, but from a national security standpoint. What's going to happen when the next outbreak
let me just real quick play this, because
Scott
seems to think that RFK Jr., who says things like this, is more credible than people who have degrees.
I literally didn't say
in the subject.
Why are you saying I didn't say?
But watch,
Why are you
watch
saying
this
I said
clip.
that? I didn't say that.
Got him. You hear Scott Jennings whining like a little bee? He's such a little crybaby. You're such a wimp. Stand by your words. No, I didn't. No, Abby. Dear Lord, no. Abby should have cornered him further. If that doctor is not credible, like you just said, Scott, then RFK Jr., by your logic, isn't either, because that's what he was just crying about right there at the end. He was just whining that he didn't say that the doctor is less credible than RFK Jr. But you did say that you questioned that guy's credibility because of what he said, right? So by deducing that statement, you are saying RFK Jr. is not credible. Say it. Is that what you're saying, Scott? And of course he won't outright say it, because he knows his daddy Trump will put him over his lap and give him a spanking. Ain't that right, punk ass? But yeah, conservatives are such manly men, alpha, tough.
When I was a kid, and I know what a healthy child is supposed to look like. I'm looking at kids as I walk through the airports today, as I walk down the street, and I see these kids that are just overburdened with mitochondrial challenges, with inflammation. You can tell from their faces, from their body movements, and from their lack of social connection. And I know that that's not how our children are supposed to look.
Science. Hashtag science.
This is why Aziz Shah said, this is wacky flat earth voodoo stuff. Please, Peter Hotez, please send a few introductory biology textbooks to the Department of HHS. I mean, look, the reason, Scott, I said what I said is because rather than you seriously answering a question about the real concerns that were raised by these officials about the bending of science to the will of that guy, you decided that the most important thing to you was their lack of credibility because they used the word people. I mean, I just think I understand the rhetoric and the political.
You realize that you're accepting some politicization of science, but not others, right?
What's the politicization of science that's been accepted?
Can men get pregnant or not?
Scott,
if you're in the CDC and you believe that, I'm saying you're not a terribly credible person.
The CDC that is responsible for the health and well-being of the nation.
That has absolutely nothing.
Nothing to do
with it does, because it's a question of whether your scientists are going to politicize or not, and you accept some and not others.
To do with the conversation that we are having.
I disagree. It's a credibility.
Why would we do that when people have died and are dying? Why would we do that when people's children are being dehumanized
in this country about real things, when everything just becomes about buzzwords
or political products?
I don't understand why you're rejecting this criticism of someone's credibility.
Yeah, because I think that what matters to people in their homes is whether or not they know what immunizations their child should have, which, by the way, immunizations have saved so many lives.
I'm not disagreeing with you about that. I agree with you.
What matters to them around the world is not what words are being used
I think it does matter,
people.
Because it tells me what kind of person
it is whether or not they can trust that the guy who's making decisions about their health actually knows what a mitochondria is.
Yes, and when we focus on...
Guys, this is the Republican Party. I know people despise having Scott Jennings in there, but this is who they are. This is how the majority of them behave. They're not intellectually curious. They're just morons. This is all a game to them. Remember how yesterday, Scott Jennings, during the school shooting video, he acted like he cared so much about the children. Maybe we should have a moment of silence, he says. Now look at him. I thought he cared about the children and their well-being. Thoughts and prayers, right, cabrón? It's amazing. Like, this is why it's hard to get things done in this country. Half the country is just completely moronic. They're stuck in this nonsense, woke, DI credit. This is what he's leaning towards. He's such an idiot. These people are obsessed with these weird things.
You know, imbecilic things such as that. That's why people are then subject to misinformation and disinformation, and they resort to violence, Scott. There was just a police... It's not violence. This is not a laughing... There was a shooting at the CDC.
There's attacks on ICE agents every day. Who's responsible for that? You seem to reject the idea that violence was being incited before.
There are people rejecting the fact that people are
now you're blaming this.
I think it is.
You guys cherry pick these things like
we don't cherry pick.
Scott, there's nobody who is justifying attacks against ICE ICE officials. And nobody should justify or diminish somebody shooting hundreds of bullets into a workplace where people
are trying to save lives, where
I-
people
I
are
agree with
practicing
you.
public health.
I'm not
So
for any
I
violence.
don't understand why that would even be a comparison that you would make, honestly.
Because it's
I
a
don't-
great way to not answer the question.
Well,
Exactly.
No one-
there we
no
are.
one-
Excellent way.
You guys, we're
to
way
avoid the
over
question
our
because
time
there
here.
are
What question?
thousands of doctors,
What question?
hundreds of thousands of doctors who probably don't use words that you don't like, who agree on the science. The science is settled when it comes to autism and vaccines. They have
Definitely.
nothing to do with each other.
Definitely.
Less than 1% of scientists suggest that there might be a link.
You seem to be very angry with me. I fundamentally agree with you.
No,
All right.
no, but why do we have to get derailed by this political BS when you could just say, yeah, that's garbage and we shouldn't politicize
Because
science.
you're a
some
wimp.
scientists are allowed to politicize things and
No,
some aren't.
no.
And it depends on your politics, and that's how we
That's
do
not
it.
true.
That is
That's not
very
true.
much not true.
That's not
but
true.
Here we are.
Thank you for saying that.
I appreciate the discussion here, and Dr. Purnell, appreciate you being here. Everyone.
The answer is simple, because Scott is a wimp. He knows this is nonsense. He knows RFK Jr. is a quack. But Scott Jennings is weak. He's spineless, afraid of his baby boo Trump being mad at him. It's that simple. He knows he will be extradited out the party next day. It's such a sad existence to have to live like that. Scott is in a pathetic prison, only built for fragile little boys like him. This is incredible for him to bring up ICE. Well, ICE gets attacked, and you guys, they're law enforcement. That actually comes with the job that you're probably going to be put in danger and at some points. You're comparing that to doctors who are trying to cure people? How moronic this guy is to make that comparison. This is incredible. Conservatives just really do not want you. This is the macro view of this. Don't want their followers listening to anyone but them. This is why they especially hate science, math, and history, because it goes directly against what they try and lie about. They want to lie to you about biology and how science really works so they can continue attacking transgender people. And all. These people are insane. They want to lie about math because then they are able to continue manipulating their followers about taxes and things like tariffs. If they understood how simple math work, these kinds of things, these kinds of policies will not work on them over and over. I've seen conservatives comment on my videos that I can only presume are broke, fighting for the rich to get further tax breaks. This is what I mean. This is what happens when you attack education so much. You start not listening to anyone, only listening to your cult leaders. But that's a whole other issue. They hate history because the most obvious one, they want to portray white people in a better light, especially during slavery. As you can imagine, they despise black history because it exposes who conservatives really are, and that they've done this over and over. And obviously the macro reason that they hate it just makes them look stupid and clearly shows that they're liars. So instead, what Scott does is simply derail the conversation and hope that his followers, because they're pretty brain dead, will be like, yeah, he owned them, blah, blah, blah. Again, Scott is speaking and working in crowd of an IQ below 50. I mean, barely functional humans. But I'm going to leave it there, guys. Let me know what you think about all this in the comments. Please leave a like, subscribe. It really helps the channel, really helps spread the message out there. And I'll catch you in the next one.